Good afternoon, one and all. I welcome to the IAPHD webinar series 4. And today's topic is research integrity. And I hope you have gained quite a good knowledge from the previous 3 sessions that happened in the last 3 Saturdays. And this session will be the last session for this month. I request Dr. Vikrant Mohanty to introduce the speaker and introduce the topic and start the session. Dr. Vikrant, over to you. Dr. Vikrant?
Vikrant, not audible.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah. Can you please allow me to share my screen?
Okay. It's done.
Yeah, I'll just. No, the host has disabled participant from screen sharing.
Okay, check it now, please. Check now, Vikrant.
Yeah. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Vamsi, for giving me this opportunity on behalf of the Indian Association of Public Health, starting off the webinar series. This is the fourth edition of the webinar series, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker, Dr. Chandrasekhar Janakiraman. Before we, I would just like to introduce the topic to you: uh, research integrity. As the title says, insights about violation of the standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior with regard to dental research. So when we talk about ethics, the first thing that comes into our mind is regarding morals, regarding principles, regarding fairness, regarding values, what choices we make, how responsible these choices are. So there are many facets of ethics when it comes to our mind. But something which actually strings through all this is integrity, because without the basis of integrity, all these values, morals would not sustain the time. So research ethics has always traditionally focused on preventing exploitation of subjects of research. And in institutions, if we talk about, we have ethical research review committees or the institution review board, which is a mandatory requirement and mainly focuses on conduct and publishing of research on human or animal subjects. And research integrity cannot be assured just by being monitored by the ethical review committee or the IRB. So there are many breaches in research integrity over time that we conduct, that we are exposed to, but sometimes we overlook them, or sometimes we are not aware of them mostly, and which are then detected later during publishing of papers and can bring sometimes discredit and discredit to the authors. So it is very important that integrity, which is the basis, is the quality of being honest and having strong moral values whenever an individual behaves and participates in society. And research integrity is the soundness of moral principle in specific context of the research. Research integrity is conducting research in such a manner that allows others to have confidence and trust in the methods, the approaches, the steps that you have taken to conduct as well as present the findings of the research. So the onus is not only on the researcher, but also on the institution, and also a societal responsibility of the individual and the institution, that whatever values are added to it, the information is in the interest of the people that we are serving. So there's few key elements of research integrity which will be covered: honesty, rigor, transparency and open communication, the care and respect of all participants, and accountability. So these, with these few opening remarks of what integrity is, what ethics is, what research ethics research integrity actually means, I would now take the opportunity of introducing our speaker for the day, Dr. Chandrasekhar Janaki Raman. Does not need any introduction, but as we are on a formal platform, it is my due responsibility for the job given to me, that I would like to introduce Dr. Janaki Raman, who completed his PhD in 2011 from the Amrita University, Cochin. Uh, yeah, and then MSc from Belgium, his DNB for the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, his masters in dental surgery in 2001 from the Rajiv Gandhi University, and his bachelor's in dental surgery in 1996 from Bangalore University. He has received many awards, been a gold medalist under the Rajiv Gandhi University, and has 20 years plus experience as a professor in public health, teaching both undergraduate, postgraduate, and and has been a mentor for all. His area of interests were are health informatics, oral and non-communicable disease epidemiology, health technology assessment, bioethics, mainly focusing on clinical and research ethics. He has more than 63 he has 63 publications, 2 books, and many other national and international presentations that he has presented at. So I welcome you, sir, and I hand over the mic and the stage to you. The virtual stage is all yours. Please proceed and enlighten us with research integrity. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Vikrant. Thank you, Dr. Vamshi, for your generous introduction. As you know, always you do it like that. Uh, I'm very thrilled with this virtual, seminar, like, because normally for ethics, we don't find so much participants. So, but I'm so happy that we have around 235 participants for this. So let me begin with what Mohanty has left it there, and try to understand why research ethics, or why ethics is required in science. Okay, so most of my presentations will be on basic applied to the dentistry and dental research. So many of these things have been, you know it, but still I just want to recycle it and to make it in a proper way to understand why research ethics is very important for us. Okay, let's go back to the historical background. If you see Edward Jenner, who invented smallpox vaccination, he was first inoculated in his own child. Okay, so he just invented and he just, invented this child. So we know all these things, like, for example, these medical experiments of Nazi doctors, where the prisoners, the Jews, were subjected to various sorts of experiments, and government sanction was there. The experiments like freezing the body, increasing the temperature, internal irrigation, where they load a lot of water into the mouth and see what's happening in the body, and the end result of this is the death. This occurs till the person dies, and also what are the physiological reactions occurring in the body. This is the one which they wanted to experiment, and so giving the warm bath, removing the temperature, removing the air from the room, and seeing what are the changes occurring in the body. And hypothermic, the removing of the oxygen, and these are the various experiments which Nazi did, experiments. And you can see the Mengele experiment is the most interesting part. Whenever he finds a twins children, he just chops the similarities and dissimilarities in them. And all these things went on. There's so many other experiments are there. Just to name few one, I'm trying to take the worst case scenarios in research ethics. And this was a Nazi experiment trial and Nuremberg trial, wherein the doctors were tried by the U.S. government, and they were sentenced to the, to 9 of them were sentenced, but again they were, and from this we came to know about the Nuremberg Code, which we normally use now, which says that all research should be there on voluntary informed consent, and there should be a justification of this research, and there should be a prior animal experiments before they with the humans. And this is what the highlights were there. And but these codes which were there 1960s and 70s had no effect on the research, and the medical profession thought it was, not only for those people, Europeans and others can do it. And this type of research went on, and the story which some people know it, is the Tuskegee experiment study, where the only thing in this study was to understand the natural history of the syphilis. If a person is infected with the how does the patient rise from it, and what are the manifestations, various stages till the patient dies. So this experiment was conducted in Tuskegee Hospital in Alabama in 1932, and this trial was, basically it was done on the African American males, and they were there in the trial. It was done, and the trial was they were selected for this trial based on two things: that you will receive a hot meals, and they will, if they die from this trial, they will get a good coffin, and they have a burial insurance, and they used to get this certificate for that participation. And it was the most disastrous in ethical aspects in research all time, especially Tuskegee trial. And it is basically, it's widely used, case study, and I'm not able to change. Somebody disabled my. Okay, so it went on in 1972, the trial. 1944, we all know that the penicillin was discovered, and penicillin was a drug of choice for syphilis, but these people were never given the penicillin. Anywhere in the US, if they go, they will never get that penicillin. So this is after a lot of in the news report and in the media, this trial was. Excuse me for a minute. There is some problem with Dr. Vamshi. Can you remove me from as a co-host?
Okay.
So that is creating a problem.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so the 19 so in 1972 the study was dropped, and we all know that a Bellament report was framed with this, and that Bellament report is the one which gives you the 4 principles of ethics, which is nothing but the uh, these 4 big principles: beneficence, non-maleficence, and so justice and autonomy. So from this trial, they came into that 4 big principles. And 1977, the Clinton made a remark that they agreed that it was one of the clearest racist study they ever conducted. And there's a beautiful film on that, Miss Ever Boys. Please, I think it's a good view for 90 minutes. It is there in the YouTube. I think every postgraduate student who wants to do research should see first this movie and then start looking at the research aspect. So, a recent study, which is also there in, you have this in the BBC country. One lady from the John Hopkins came up with a cancer drug which she can treat the oral cancer, and she landed up in the regional cancer center in Trivandrum. And we had some sort of a Westerners bias when Western people come, so we think that everything is good. And brought the medicine in his vanity bag from US to India, and the local contact, they did a study on this, and the drug had a lot of side effects. And many people died, and especially they had a paralysis of that side effects. And it was a whistle blower was there, and and that was the whistleblower, when he blew the whistle of the problem of the study, and and what happened? Nothing happened. Only the whistleblower got into problem, and the lady went back, and she got some awards for this research. And we have our own study, like White study, the largest study in the field cardiology. And the main purpose of the studies and main 3 conclusions of the study, which we use right now also. But the problem, if you look at the problem of the study, was there are different groups of people were there for 2 years, and different types of diets. And the study subjects were not normal people; they were challenged people. And those people, would have agreed for the study and use those diets for 2 years. It's a great question mark.
वो स्लाइड पीछे गई, अगर वो वापस की तो आऊंगी, स्लाइड हट गई, वो भी दे दूंगा.
This study again tells us that no doubt the study results have been used till date, but still, there is a question mark whether we can use that, because this was done on those people who could not give a consent, and their autonomy was not there, and we are using that result now for health promotion. So Turku sugar studies again an issue dental students was used, and this study is widely used and widely translated into an action. But again, there's a power equations. How can a medical and dental student can be used in that research? At that point, debates are there on this issue. So if you see a recent one about a school in Bangalore where postgraduate research to ask the patient recruitment the school asked for the sister concern of a then of the school to participate in this trial, and it became a huge controversy, and it shows that I was shocked when my son told me that we got a letter from the school asking the permission to give a consent stating that we have no objection to our study being by the student of a sister constitution, a dental college. Though it was mandatory, how can a school subject to a children to a such treatment by students? Why they are using children experiment? So this is a concern of autonomy issue as such. So if you see this few stories and understand that history of research abuse is a history of racism, class injustice, and other forms of bias and discriminations. And ethical standing point is not an individual versus society, but it's on human rights. So ethics is nothing but human right. So I have a right, and I have a right to decide what I want. So this is the history. So this is a little bit about history, and most of the things have become worst case scenarios. You have a lot of case stories to discuss, and which will go a little later. So why ethics in research? We need to protect the human subjects. So we need research. We need to treat them fairly. So we need the ethics, and treating them subject equally is more important. So research participation by the humans is a privilege and not its right. So when it is a privilege, we need to have some ethical considerations. With this framework which I was trying to explain why ethics is required in science. One is already given about research integrity, and trying to now shift to the next level where what happens if there is that integrity is lost, and when that integrity is lost, then it will be called as a movement. And this is for no. And the first story which you should know is about Darcy affair, and it is a widely discussed in research ethics everywhere, and any standard textbooks of research programs will have this case discussion on Darcy. John Darcy was actually a medical student, and he was in Harvard Medical School laboratory department. Actually, they also have a lab, and he was one of the postdoctoral fellow in cardiology, and he produced a paper among all the fellows. He used to produce a paper very fast, and he had around 120 publications by the 5 to 10 years time, and NIH grants were there. Most of the studies, what he did was he never conducted, and most of them were fabricating. He never conducted it, and everything he altered it. The fabrication, falsification was there, and he was caught, and his supervisor thought that, oh, not much difference is there, but still, if you, he was caught, and and what happened was he was fired from his job. His license was removed. The Harvard amount which they had given back. It was the first time in the history till now, because of misconduct, the money, the grant was returned back to the funds. Science and scientific or science and ethics. If you see the science instrumental values are like we need to reproduce a research. It should be accurate. It should be simplicity, consistency. You should get the same results over the period of time different people does, and there should be scope for the improvement and also for the socially. If you seek to attain these instrumental values, it needs core values which are honesty, skepticism, fairness, collegiality, and openness. So science and ethics blends. Science and ethical values are not different; they are the same thing. So that's why we need the ethics in science. So there's one more story which is called as Malcolm Pierce. He was a gynecologist who was an associate editor of the British Journal of OBG, and she was also a resident doctor in one of the hospitals in London. She first presented a case report in BNJ. The case report was on the ectopic pregnancies. And when they replanted, it was successful replantations. So this was the one case report she published. After that, and the editor also became the one co-author for it. He has never seen a report, the case on the co-author. And when it was published, it was fine. And later she went on and she fabricated a clinical trial of 200 women with polycystic ovary syndrome. In those patients, she showed that she successfully reimplant the embryo, and that was where there's no 200 patients were there. It was all on the paper, and she published it. And the Chamberlain was also an editor for that. He was a co-author for this. He has never seen that patients, never passed by the trial, but they came to know about this study. It was not is a fictitious study, and he was also president of the Royal College of Surgeons, and he was removed she was also removed from the post. So scientific misconduct is a violation of standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior in professional scientific research. So what it constitutes is integrity is responsibility, good research practice, and soundness of moral principle with specific context of research practice. So when integrity is lost, we get into a misconduct. So misconduct means a conduct of a fraud in research with the intention to deceive. So that intention to deceive is more important. And it has three components. One is fabrication of the data, falsification of the data, and plagiarism. So these are the three components of misconduct. There are two minor components are there. One is the evasion from the good research practice and questionable research practices. Let's go into detail about these things. But the other forms of that same FFP is falsification, fabrication, suppression, plagiarism, self-plagiarism, ghostwriting, bare assertions, improper authorship, misappropriation, developmental inflation, violation of ethical standards, beginning humans and animal experiments. So I'll try to give you some examples for this. If you have seen the Dassey affair and Malcolm Pierce, it's all about fabrication of the data. So why do scientists commit misconduct? The hunger for scientific reputation and high esteem. We always regard researchers, scientists as a high regard in the society. So the person needs that hunger. So naturally, there's a hunger to do misconduct. Job insecurities, where the publication and survival is the most important. So naturally, the misconduct increases, and we don't have a policing action. Everybody gets away with that because we don't have a control over that, and enforcement is a problem, and we don't have a proper penalization. So that's easier to do it. So the more fraud triangle is a pressure from publish or perish, or data is skewed, opportunities to do that. So it's a mess and vicious cycle where the scientists commit the misconduct. So there is another thing is, if I don't do the things properly, if I do the things properly also, so the person will also have some sort of a fear of rejection. So my work is not correct, I don't know how to do it. So then I try to copy others. So rejection is the biggest problem and biggest fear where people try to do misconduct. So one of the most important thing for anybody as such, everybody passes through this phase, what is called writer's block. When we want to write something in research or anything as such in research, we have a block. The condition of being unable to think what to write and how to proceed with writing. And especially if I ask to come write a two-page paragraph on a rate significance of a study or a discussion, or we don't know how to start. And so when we don't know how to start, and we have a blog, everybody has a blog when we start writing. We say that side effect is plagiarism. So scientific misconduct, why career advancement, competitiveness, laziness, and ability to get away with it. What happens is it undermines the integrity, conclusions are not justified, unjustified career advancement, violates moral precepts, removes incentives, leads to the more bureaucratization of the science. So how does FFP occurs? Fabrication, falsification, plagiarism. Falsifying and cooking the research data. Ignoring the major aspects of human subjects' requirements. Relationship with students, research subject that may interpret as questionable. That's why I talked about the Turku sugar studies. Using another's idea without obtaining permission or giving due credit. Unauthorized use of information in connection with one's research. Failing to present the data that contradicts one's own previous research. Circumventing the minor aspects of human subject requirements. Overlooking the other's flawed data questionable. Okay, somebody has done wrong. If you overlook that, again, it's considered as misconduct. And changing the design methodology in response to the funding source. So funders majorly defines will have effect on this misconduct. So what happens is what you come to conclusion means you're trying to navigate and negotiate your research proposal to a particular concept. So then that pressure will be there for the to do the misconduct. So practices that are potentially deceptive and harmful, failure to deal with non-random errors. So we have no random errors are due to the samples problem, but non-random errors, if you don't deal, then it's again a deceptive. Post hoc hypothesis means we have a conclusion and we had a hypothesis before. The conclusion is not reflecting the hypothesis, then change the hypothesis because you got a conclusion different. So multiple comparison and data dredging. The comparison groups are multiple, and you compare to inappropriate comparisons when you present the data. Inappropriate statistical tests using for normality, normal distributed data you use in other type of tests which are not indicated. Fragmentation of the reports, selective reporting, salami slicing, low statistical power, data handling, undisclosed reputation of unsatisfactory experiments. So these are the potentially deceptive and harmful practices, and selective reporting of the findings. So they classified this into what I told in previous two slides, like circles of scientific health. Limbo means we know that there is occurring some of my colleagues are doing something fishy, but I will keep quiet. So that is limbo effect. Overselling. So you have done something, you have got significant, and you have got very significant, and you try to oversell that idea in my research. But this is my most significant result. Next is post hoc storytelling. That's what I told you about post hoc hypothesis. P-value fishing, keep on repeating the test unless you get a test shows that which has significant. Creative outliers, if they have a data which has outliers, you cannot, if you remove that outlier, you will see that there is a significant result. So you try to remove that outlier, but outlier is very important. plagiarism, non-publication. Even non-publication is considered as one of the aspects of misconduct, because when you have done something, it should be published and known to us, because science requires deliberation. So because when you see a systematic review, even though we do not have a published one, we are trying to get that information and load it into meta-analysis for a policy one. So partial publication and falsification, the lowest one is. So others but not FFP, which questionable research practice, are actions that violate the traditional values of research enterprise that are detrimental to the research process. It's also called as para fraud, illogical behavior. If somebody publishes something, we need to appreciate that. If we don't appreciate that, we say that there's illogical behavior, actually, if it is a good research. And scientific misbehavior, like trying to protect the accused from losing a job or being barred from the research, or even if you try to protect it, or you try to overlook a person with unscientific opinion, which some have some misconduct, minor misconduct is also called as misbehavior. So they say it is a little murders of everyday science. So why do we publish actually? We publish to share ideas, expertise and evidence, personal development, personal satisfaction that we have done it, but right to remember, right to understand, right to test your thinking, and meet promotion, tenure, job requirements. And most important also is a societal contribution, that you have provided something to the society which will have an effect on the improvement. So why publish? We have only substantial claim of knowledge. We need to, that knowledge we need to be criticized, deliberated by others, and they have to appreciate this knowledge is correct or not. So we need to publish. So and in order to be accountable and receive credit, and also to blame. So it's both the ways. So the concept was publish, and the concept was, if you do not publish and you perish, means you're nothing. I mean, if you do not publish it. So that is the biggest contributor for FFP, the misconduct. But what we say now is publish or flourish, not the perish. Actually, you need to publish and flourish it, but in a integrity, in a not in a misconduct way. Actually. So one of the golden stand, what do we say, that one of the most important discussed case story of a very minor misconduct, which is it becomes a major one. If you see this, you all know this. Fallen, he had a Time magazine. His name was Hong Suk, who started research, and he was a pride of Korea in 2005, and 2000 May and 2000 December he was, he was nothing actually, and he, his research was all cooked up data, but he was caught. Why he was caught was to do a standard research to get the eggs from the females. He paid the money for recruitment for the participant, and that money which he paid was huge money for the participants. So that was the reason why he was, the scandal broke onto this, and it started with the inducement. It's called inducing the participant to the trial, and which is more than required, and cooking up the data. So scientific enterprise comes the trust. It trust, and trust comes from doing what you see. So research is based on the trust that truth is told about the study. So we believe that whatever you told is based on the truth, and you are telling only the truths. That's why we say that this is my bias, this is my clear, this is my limitation, this is my strength. So FFP erodes that trust. So scientific enterprise is built on the foundation of the trust, and that trust is lost when we do a small minor misconduct also. So research integrity is a green one. So if there is a questionable research practice, that gray, and scientific misconduct is the red, never to be done. So I can give you an examples like this actually. You can see a manipulation of digital images. So you can see here the original image, and you see the manipulated image here. You can do a Photoshop of this images, so you get into this. You see the original image here, and the dots lines are more here. This is a manipulated image. Here again, you can see the manipulated image and the original image. This is basically occurs in the basic sciences, chemistry, physiology, physics, and especially in pathology, manipulation of this images. I had a very recent one, the last month's story about this retracted publications of citations in dental literature and systematic review, clinical and experimental dental research published recently. And this is about the dental research. They took this, they have done the systematic review on retracted papers from years. And we can see that India accounts for the largest number of retractions of the paper. And Asia accounts for the largest retraction compared to other continents. And most of them retracted were due to the plagiarism and scientific error and publishers, it's due to publisher reasons. And most of the designs were in vitro designs, case reports, all review studies were retracted. Old pathology had high retractions compared to other. Anyway, we don't have a public health industry here, but there is one more systematic review which shows about dental public health. But still, you can see how the old pathology accounts for the largest number of retractions because manipulations are easier there to do fabrications. So you can see that retracted paper also increases over the years. So why this happens? Because lack of training in ethics. Mentoring in ethics are not there. We don't encourage, we have research methodologies, most important component, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day course for a person who's doing a research for 2 years, 3 years in dental. And ethics is the most important part there, and we don't concentrate on ethics because nobody is there to train for an ethics. And fate of the whistleblowers. We have seen who blows the whistle and who's always blows the whistle that somebody is doing wrong, you always be targeted. So that's the reason why people don't do more, because nobody does the whistle blowing. And there's a strong link between the competition among scientists and research misconduct. So why an authorship is an issue actually? An authorship, why do we need authorship? Because fulfillments of a responsibility that I have communicated the results for deliberations. And it's for a credit allocation for a person who has done the research. It gives a great benefit and responsibility. And authorship is the most controversial thing in the papers. And we know that there is a definition who is role of an author and a contributor clearly defined. And the author has to fulfill all 4 criteria to be eligible as an author. So this is what I'm trying to put in this slide, what authors are. But again, who is senior author, first author, corresponding author? Again, there's a lot of gray area and vagueness. There's no criteria to classify like that. But still, it leaves the society leaves to the group of researchers to decide among themselves, decide who their contribution, it's because society trusts them. So that's why we don't have any criteria for authorships order. So authorship, again, there are different types of authorships we find in the misconduct. Most of you have know this, but some things are like, you know, senior author, because you have a department senior person, you get a senior authorship. You have a coercive authorship, you need to force somebody to get authorship. There's a white bull effect. White bull effect means there's always a head of the institution or head of the department who has a, he'll be the expert and he gets that. And we also have this more common is a guest or gift authorship, which we found in Malcolm Pierce affair. Mutual support of authorship, like exchanging between the papers. Duplication of authorship. I'll give you all these examples in subsequent slides. Ghost authors are very common in pharmaceutical companies, where pharmaceutical companies employ these ghost authors and write the paper for the physicians. And family authorship is a recent terminology where you have husband and wife, and in the family, the authorships are given even though they are not related in the same disciplines. So, how to handle the authorship issues? Who is a first author? Who is a last author? There is no criteria. The criteria is substantial contribution. The substantial contribution means if satisfies all four criteria also, that is everybody should accept that they have reviewed the paper, and also they have to accept that they will face any consequences regarding this particular paper, actually, if there is anything like that in the future. So the society, as I told previously, society rests on the authors to decide among themselves who is the first, second, third, and there is no criteria has been set anywhere as such. And nobody knows there is who is the first author, who is the last author, who is the corresponding author, which author gets more credit. No, we don't know that. But they say criteria set by different people. UGC say that first and second is more. Somebody is saying that corresponding authors are more important. The last author is more important. So we don't know that. So whistleblowing is your ethical duty, and it's most important that Whistleblower Act is provided by the Government of India. You will be protected with that if you blow a research misconduct. So peer reviewing problems is the most important problem. Is that when you get a paper for reviewing, most of the authors, most of the don't review properly, or they don't want to review. But reviewing is your scientific and ethical duty also, because otherwise, if you don't review, science won't progress. So most of the time when we review, what happens is reviewers will steal the data and publish it before this paper is published. This happens even in a postgraduate thesis also. So in Rajiv Gandhi University, where it was sent to the people to review the thesis, and by the time the reviewer stole the data and published it, before that the person know that his study was published already. So this is like peer review store. One of the examples, you can find this all examples in the Retraction Watch website. So peer reviewer stole the text for our own registry paper and say journal entry. So be careful when we are trying to review it. And also most of the time people don't review and they give it to their, they put this review as a journal club in their department and review it and then send. So it should not be done because it's confidential information. Reviewing it should not be known to others, but it happens. And stealing of that data in review process is very common. Plagiarism is stealing of the information and claiming that idea is my own and giving the credit. So first plagiarism was started in Roman period in 1480. The poet was there. He was reciting a poem, and the same poem was recited by every other persons, and they told that they have only composed that poem. That's what he used the first name, first word for plagiarist. And what constitutes plagiarism is that it is not, if you have a quoted and cited it, it is not plagiarized. If you remove the quotation and given only cited, it's plagiarized. You have no quotation, no source, plagiarized. Plagiarized, rephrased with but no source. This is most common occurring. It's rephrased if you don't source, cite the source, so it's plagiarized. So you can see an example researcher risk paper from dental researcher from here retracted of plagiarism. It happened after 15 years, not today. Don't imagine that it will happen 1 year, 2 years. No, it will happen. It can happen anytime. An example of this one was it was published somewhere in 15 years back, and it got retracted. So Dental Journal pulls out paper for duplicate publication, CCD. Very common, duplicate publications. Fake data, authorship issues, force retraction of dental paper. Sorry about this slide. Retraction, journal publication policy change. Indian Society of Pedology had an incident about this problem of permission and authorship, and then they changed the publication policy of that misconduct later. And dentistry student loses a travel grant in IIT plagiarize the data, actually. I mean, the paper. Why does plagiarism matter? Because breach of academic integrity. It is a principle of intellectual honesty that all members of academic community should acknowledge the depth originators of the idea, which we don't give credit to them. And it is nothing but undermines the standards of the institutions and degree uses. So because if you don't give ownership criteria for that. So if there is a 9-10 spectrum of plagiarism, I wish you try to see it in detail about this, what the 9 spectrum of that, and all are plagiarism there. So one is a cloning one. See, this is a frequency which occurs out of 10 times, and this is about the problematic. So you see the original work like this, and this is the plagiarized work, actually. Word-to-word copying, and say it's more without citation. Control C, that is copy paste. You see that there is a contains significant portion from single text without alterations. Only small alterations they make. You can see that the same thing differs in like this. Find and replace. Change the keywords, phrases, but retaining the same content will be the same, but little bit change the word. You can see the indigenous people here, and you can see the native. It changes here. Mix, paraphrase from multiple sources and made to fit each other. That is like mosaic-like appearance. So we have different sources and make it to recycle, borrows from the previous. Your work only, I mean, the author's previous work will be used here without any citation. Frequency is very common, less the frequency. Hybrid combines perfectly cited sources from copied from passage without citations. Previous people with citation, without citations. Mashup. It's all small differences, if you see, but mixes the copy material from multiple sources without, again, includes the citation from non-existent and inaccurate information. You cite something that doesn't exist in literature. Aggregator includes proper citation, but the paper contains almost no original work. It is cut and paste from not even a single word here. Retweeting, proper citation, but relates closely on original wording and structure again. So it's, if you see around 10.1, there are some things are very small, bottom lines are very less. And all these are types of spectrum of plagiarism. So the side effect of writer's block is the plagiarism. So if you get a block, then people, 90% of the people will go to plagiarize the writing. So copyright is a problem which when we have plagiarism, then it can go into the Copyright Act and it can be legally deemed. So there is a retraction watch source, and it's that most of the work, plagiarism is the reason why the retraction is done compared to the flawed images and fake peer reviews. And you can get around retraction rates per 100,000 papers. Here gets the highest one, and India gets the fourth one. It is by the editor of a journal, chemistry journal. He retracted 331 papers, and most of those papers were due to the authorship issues and data issues. Honest errors were very less. So the reasons for retraction of papers in the industry are especially redundant publication, overlap, misconduct, plagiarism, authorship use, and sometimes no reasons are reported. So let's take one of the trends of the paper. This is a trend from 1958, 59 to 2016. They have compared all the papers published in PubMed and compared with dentistry. So if you see that over the last decade, the paper retractions have increased. This they have not retracted till now. So that's why we don't get that information. But I think the trend is rising actually for dentistry. So this is about showing that in dentistry, the misconduct paper are more. If the impact factor, the documents are more here actually. And if you see that oral pathology will be the highest retracted here, and compared to the other subjects. Even dental public has less actually. So pediatric dentistry has less. And those papers, in vitro case reports and narrative reviews are getting more retracted compared to the other one. These are the examples. I have masked the authors. Some of the authors, it's in the public domain, so there is no problem in still some of the authors you may be knowing. That's why I try to mask it. These are the two publications which are common actually. There's nothing different, only it is redundant publications. This is also again a redundant publication published in both the journals. Exactly similar, nothing different was there, only the titles are different. You can see this title has been retracted. So BMJ has retraction reports, case reports. You can see about dental case reports, so many are there. You can see the same paper in publishing BMJ case report was published again in International of Odontosmetology, and it is same. There's no much difference. Again, another example. It's the same. There's no difference. The authors will change. Most of the time, the authors' orders will change and authors will change. There will be new author or a deletion of the old author. Plagiarism, data manipulation is hurting India research, and Indian academics have contributed to the various kind of fake journals, 35% of fake journals between 2010 and 2015. This is an HRD report, Government of India, and plagiarism is the most important part of it. UGC has mandated that every PhD from 2020 onward have a research and publication ethics course for 2 credit course, which is mandatory for the PhD from 2020. And it has a policy like if you find, if the paper finds less than 10% of plagiarism, would carry no penalty. 10 to 40% would carry the students to submit the revised manuscript, and force the faculty members to withdraw the plagiarized paper. First student would be suspended for a year, and faculty members should forfeit the annual pay rise and prohibited from supervising students for 2 years. More than 60% terminate from the program student with penalties for faculty members that be extended to a loss of 2 years pay increase and 3-year ban of the supervising student. These are recent policies, which is there applied in all UGC central universities and so law concerning plagiarism are by section of Indian Penal Code, section 57, 57 and 63 are there, which can a person can claim the damage on this. So there was a systematic review that how many scientists fabricate, falsify research. Very interesting. Actually, 2% of the scientists have fabricated or falsified, and around 34% have admitted they have done some questionable research practices. In the survey, they have admitted that around 14% for falsification and 72% of questionable research practices. Actually, action taken are very less in that review. And actually, the frequencies could be more than what they have stated. Actually, there will be a disability bias. The interviewer may not say it properly, but still, if they have admitted 72%, we can imagine how much people have committed questionable research practices. So, to be, 1 in 3 scientists admits they have done some type of questionable research practices. So this is a question which you may have or I would like to ask something. Would it be okay if someone stole the money to give it or can unethically produced data be used ethically? I think we can have a discussion on this later. I'm just finishing my slides. But what I'm trying to say is that the study has been done unethically, and if the study has given a good data, can we use it? That's the case with the White study. Can we use the data? Now we are using that data now every day. But is it okay that I steal the money from somebody and give it to the poor? That's like Robin Hood effect. Or the stealing is bad, but do we say that we can agree in one instance and may not agree in another instance? Because the use of that particular research is more important than the conduct. So let's have a discussion a little later on this. So when the research is ethical, it has scientific validity, fair selection of study population, favorable risk-benefit, independent review, informed consent, social value, respect for participant, and collaborative partnership. The problem is the biggest risk is like reading informed consent and telling the people that you are under the study, will you participate? Yeah, that is the irony part of it. So dealing with the misconduct, there is not, everybody issues a guideline. We know all the traffic guidelines, everything, but what is the enforcement level? So research methods and research ethics should be made mandatory grade course in postgraduate rather than ad hoc training 1 day. And this institution should have an Office of Research Integrity and Facilitation process, because then only it can be important where this misconduct can be addressed. So it's very interactive. There is an Office of Research Integrity in a website in the US Health Department. It's a very interactive movies where you can play a role as a researcher, as a guide, as an observer, as a colleague in the different languages. It's for 5 minutes and you play like that, and it will try to sensitize you if you are a guide, what you should do, what you should not do. And this is a very good way of orienting the students into this research ethics, because ethics cannot be taught. Ethics can only shown by an example, actually. So we always tell ethics only by case studies. We can't say how to be good, actually. We can only say by telling the moral stories. That's why when we are in school children, in school we have moral stories and we read that and we ask questions, right? So this is one of the interactive ways of understanding research misconduct. And I think I highly recommend for any postgraduate student or a postgraduate guide to implement this in their training actually. So that is Office of Research Integrity in the lab, and most of that you can get any version of, you can play the role and answer the question there. So can promote research integrity, be available, approachable, review the data, raw data. Don't ask, most of the research guides may not ask the review the raw data. Actually. They will just see the tables and the significant or not, but we don't know what is happening in the raw data. Communicate the expectations, training and guidance, and try to have a research integrity office. It's very difficult, but now ICMR has come up with a policy on that. So that gives you guideline to promote that this Office of Research Integrity. I would suggest it's the most, everywhere around the world, any university, a postgraduate has to learn a 90-page book on being a scientist, responsible conducting research. It is freely available PDF. Everybody has to read when you want to do any research, any basic research, any type of research as such. So ICMR has a policy on research integrity and publication ethics. They have framed this policy for the ICMR institutes, but it can be used as a guideline for their own institutes to frame a policy on that. Because what happens if there is the authorship or who solves the problem, how to solve the issue for plagiarism. So way forward, appreciation of research value. Most of the time, allocation of research time for the student and faculty per day. That's more important because one of the research survey conducted in India among the industry professionals, most of the people, have a multiple roles. Like I'm HOD, I'm an academician, I want to teach PG, I want to teach PhD, I want to do a public health program, I want to do a UG training, I want to do a research. You can't do so much things at a single person. So, and also another thing is we need to have a specific time allocated. 2 days or 1 day in a week should have allocated only for the research work. So then the program will become better. Appreciation of UG curriculum, because UG research is only only for PG, not for UG. No, it should be for everybody actually. So research appreciation should be UG curriculum. Research skills, library facility, funding for the conference, funding for the workshop, a small research grant for the most of the unfunded research have a misconduct tendency actually. So it has been so, because why does a person on his own pay the money and do a proper research? It costs more. So research facilitation should be there, again manned by research, full-time research facilities, because that's why multiple roles becomes a problem. Grant applicator writers are available. English language mentors and medical editors are available, which can be, sought the help of, so the plagiarism problem will come down. So in general terms, responsible conduct in research is simply a good citizenship applied to the professional life. So don't be in a race of publish or perish, because that's not a good way of reaching the goal of a professional life or a research enterprise. So research is to see everything, what everybody has seen, and to think what nobody has ever thought about it. So with that, I conclude my small presentation on research, and I will take some questions and have a happy research career for your own people. Thank you so much.
The house is open for discussion. Anyone has questions, please? May I directly ask Dr. Chandrasekhar. Vikrant, you there? Am I audible?
Yes.
Vikrant, Dr. Vikrant? Yeah, I can see.
Hello.
If anyone has questions, you
Do
can
you
directly
hear
ask
me?
Dr.
Yeah, Vikrant.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So, if there are any questions, I would request the floor is open. If there are any questions, please.
Vikrant, this is Vinay. I have a question.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Suresh. You can, Vinay, you can ask a question directly.
Chandrasekhar sir, good evening sir. Very informative presentation. Sir, I
Vinay,
was.
yeah.
So my question is like the following integrity is what we learned about today. So the consequences of not doing so, like plagiarism and all the various other factors which people do just to get their articles published, and what are the consequences and how far the consequences to take them, other than just retracting the article.
No, this is violates your moral precepts. Like you have done something wrong. Retract a paper is one of the consequences which very 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,00,000 occurs. Not everybody gets the retraction. Only when you are caught, you are a thief. So when you are not caught, you are not thief. So
Yes, sir.
so the consequences is more of an individual perception actually, where you feel something. Uh, you have violated some codes which you are supposed to not to do it.
So it is on one's own self to reflect on his own mistakes and correct himself, is what you're saying, sir.
Yes, research is an enterprise where it requires a full-time approach. We have a multiple roles. Naturally, we try to cut short the things and try to be in a questionable or go into the misconduct, and that is a big problem. Since we are in the race of publishing and doing research, so many things. What happens is we are not caught easily. But in other situations, other communities or cultures, it's caught. You have been you will. It's difficult for you to there in that because they have the enforcement is so solid that you will be caught. So once you get caught in research, means it's difficult to come back.
Yes, sir, because now most of the data is falsified, most of the results are falsified. So that would have an impact on the articles which we are reading today. The results from the evidence base, what we're taking from, again might be distorted. So all this should have a more stringent measures to curb them, rather than wait till somebody is getting caught, and by that time his own entire research career is over. So that's how things are happening lately. We find that such a senior person had published so many articles before, and at the end of his career, it has been thought that all of his data was falsified. So that is one issue which should be addressed. The more earliest it is, the better.
These all institutional controls, social controls are more important. Unless that occurs, and also we are not full-time researchers, we are all full-time academicians. So even if there is a one retraction of paper, it will not affect your job. So that's why that we control is there, so we get away with that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So yes, there was a question from Dr. Sapna. Can we do a whistleblowing without anonymously? Yes. But you have to be caught. I mean, somebody has to, that evidence should be there. You can say it, you can do it, but if it comes to an action, but the person who has done it needs an evidence. So then whistleblowing is a little difficult in that way. Yeah, it can be done initially anonymously, and later it has to go to the should be clarity and who has told it.
Yeah, sir, we have a question from Dr. Sahana Hegde.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is the scenario amongst researchers abroad? Is the one who contributes the most the last author, as in the sequence of authorship?
Now, there is a trend now. The senior most author will always be a last author. Before it was other way around. now there is a trend that the senior most author wants to take the last authorship. And there is a more, there is more competition for the corresponding authors, because now the corresponding authors gets more, credits. So when Madam is asking for the, for the abroad, what happens?
Yeah, what happens abroad, and then we don't follow the same in India. That's what she writes.
We don't. That's why I'm telling. The society has given us that liberty to decide, because we are intellectuals and we are responsible person to act appropriately, to decide who has contributed and try to put it in that way. So that's why nobody in the world has given any guidance that who should be the first, who should be the second, who should be the third, last author. So
Okay.
if you don't give that liberty, then it becomes a some sort of a police rule.
Yeah. So we have a question from Dr. Upendra.
Yes.
Dr. Upendra, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you for the wonderful session, sir. I had 3 questions to be precise, sir.
Three.
First of all, the first one is, being at the in this COVID scenario, there are a lot of questionnaires or the studies being conducted via Google form, which might not take into consideration the ethical aspects. So how integrated are these? The first one. The second one was, sir, regarding p-value phishing. So when we talk to other specialities, even the HODs and the higher bodies have this thing of getting the p-value significant. So how to eliminate that? And the third one being, is the publishing house also responsible for the issues that are being created, or just the authors that are responsible for the plagiarism and other issues related?
No, in case the last question, both the people are responsible. I mean, author is the primary responsibility lies in author, because if there is no check by the editor, then editor is also equally responsible. So, in COVID situation, if people, I got one survey from somebody from India, then I declined, because they're saying that in COVID situation, knowledge practices towards dentistry, infection, whatever is there, they did not have an informed consent form, participation information sheet, and directly they gave the questionnaire to. I don't think whether that study was even approved by an institutional committee, because in that in this situation where there is no, colleges were not open, and whether they did a review or proposal was submitted, whether ethical review committee was formed or not, I don't know about that process. But better to avoid such type of surveys. Don't participate if there is no informed consent.
Okay, so there's, yeah. Upendra,
Yes.
anything else?
So that p-value phishing, how do we eliminate that? Because considering the other specialty people, they are more into a significant result is all they want regarding.
You need to stand. You need to stand to firm on that. No, we can't do it. We can't fish it up. We can't do certain things against what established principles are there. If somebody see almost all the articles. What research occurring in India is a postgraduate research. There is no independent faculty research. Okay, and one of the research is that one of the aspect is that matching of the key article. So what we are doing is a research cycle. Somebody has left something there. We are trying to reinventing the wheel and trying to match the same thing. So if you are trying to match something to the same key article matching, what is the use of a study actually? Study has to come out with a new different thing. So these problems are there. So you need to stand straight for those people. See, this is what I can do. There are some people who can fish it out and give it, but we can't.
Yeah. So we have a question from Dr. Shweta Avinash. What is your advice to reviewers regarding plagiarism detection tools?
Reviewers are not actually people to check for plagiarism. It's a responsibility of the editor, because reviewer can't use a tool to do it actually. It's not his job actually to do the reviewer plagiarism detection. It's editor's job, because if we give it back to the reviewer, the reviewer will not do any job. Because getting reviewing is only a difficult problem. And then asking them to do a plagiarism, find out the plagiarism is very difficult.
Okay. So the Dr. Rajesh has asked a question regarding how to avoid self-plagiarism.
The answer is there in the question.
Yeah, that's what self.
Because how to avoid means if you go to a research gate or if you go to a web of science, it will tell you your index score with self citation without self citation. So it tells you that how much you have done it. If the study is very related, a pre-series of studies which are related to each other, then you have to cite it. Then you can cite it, and there's no harm in not citing your own article. Only when you are citing simply because you want to increase the citation, that becomes a self-pleasure. No, did I answer? What he was asking?
Yeah, he was asking for self-plagiarism. Rajesh?
Hello, can I join
Rajesh?
you? Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yes,
Raj.
yes.
Sorry, I got your question wrong. I'm sorry.
No, so what happens is self-plagiarism is mostly inadvertent self-plagiarism. It's not intentional, it's unintentional. So without our own knowledge, sometimes we tend to quote our own studies. It becomes self-plagiarism. That was the of my.
So you say there are two aspects. Yeah, it's
one
about
aspect is self-citation, one is self-plagiarism.
self-plagiarism.
Is intention. See, any thing which are intentionally to deceive is a misconduct. When you have unintentionally done it, see that's why plagiarism means 20 to 30%. We can get the reputation. We don't find any problem. People will accept 20%. But different standards are there, different institutions. But most of the time, will not go more than 20%. Because I can't write so many words which are different from you. I can't invent a new word to write if you avoid 100% plagiarism. Plagiarism means what? Idea. The words will be there, but idea should not be the same.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We have studied a lot today about the theory of research integrity and types of plagiarism. But what is the stopgap for this in practice? And if there is any stopgap, what can IA PhD do about it? Because this happens at an institutional level, at a department level, at an individual level. So the concept of ethics is easy to study theoretically, sir, but what's the way forward practically? Thanks.
Absolutely. Any aspects easy to teach, difficult to practice. It may not be only ethics. Okay. Now, ethics is an individual justification for a particular moral action. What ethics means. That is why it is ethics. So, if next level of ethics is the law, legal. So that is why they have left it to the professionals, because we say you are a professional because you are trying to uphold the ethics or integrity there. So institutional control mechanism has to be there. Now, IAPHD, what IAPHD can do is, I'm not sure what it can do. What it can do is it can give a guideline how to adopt these guidelines into their practices. Or that's what you can do it. Not more than that actually. So guidelines are there. If you go to a codex.com, if you get around 500 guidelines, okay. But what is the use? Everybody has enforcement is a problem. So you need a research integrity, orientation, and perception among the people first. Create the activism role, and then create small seeds has to be there, and then it has to come. It takes time. If there is, most of the time in India, prevention occurs by catastrophe. Catastrophe means if there is some problem, then only they will think of a prevention. So in dentistry, we have not got any catastrophe till now. So we are waiting to happen. Then only we may create it.
Yeah. Thank you,
But,
sir. Yeah.
How viable is it to wait for a catastrophe to happen when you see that there is a decline of professional morality everywhere, in every institution? However popular that institution is and however viable their guidelines otherwise are, if there are people who cross the limits when it comes to research integrity, then what's the role of the professional organization that they belong to?
Let's take whistleblowing. Whistleblowing.
बाहर रख दिया था पता था मैं लेट हो रही हूँ फिर मुझे कंफर्टर नहीं मिल रहा था पूरे बाथरूम में सॉरी जले तो खा लेना प्लीज
Hello. Hello,
Yes.
Mano. Hello.
तो
Yes.
भूल चलना कोई दिक्कत
Yeah, sir, I'm sorry, I'm not able to mute. Sir, Dr. Sogi has a question.
Yeah.
Dr. Sogi, can you just please go ahead?
Good afternoon.
ये तो स्पीकर चलो चले गया दसोगी सर
How do you well, Chandrasekhar? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, good presentation. Very short and cute, as usual.
Cute.
How do you differentiate between similarity index and plagiarism? And do you think manually done by the research, the editor, or probably any other person who interpreted? I feel there is a science behind an interpretation of similarity index and giving a score for plagiarism. And second query is, when an author present, they submit the same manuscript for at a time, even when they give an undership, saying a statement sheet that we have not submitted, we watch that we have not submitted to any other manuscript, and editor trusts that author and go ahead for a publication, and simultaneously you get an acceptance, and before that publication also by coincidentally occur in the same time by the different journal. So how do you consider it as a plagiarism? Thank you.
This is not a plagiarism actually. That is a redundant publication, and it is a, if he has submitted in two different articles, it is a waste of resources of reviewing two same paper two times, and he has violated the moral principles there. And if you find that it has been done, I think you can take an action.
Oh, that's a policy of a journal, probably, right? That's a policy of a journal.
Yes, yes, the problem.
That's the one. So how do you interpret between a similarities index where human intervention is required for that?
Yes, but I would suggest what the normally review process goes is production. I mean, the technical editor will be trying to do this job actually, because we can put the reviewer into the picture to do this process.
No, we don't. I'm not asking the reviewers to do it. It is the editor only who does it. For example, I have been assigned a job from my university to check the integrity of the research, and we have used a Turnitin software, right? There was a lot of misinterpretation using this interpretation of Turnitin software. Now we use Urkun software.
Yes.
Right? And then there was a class for how to handle these softwares. That we interpreted as a similarities index, and later turn it as it is really a plagiarized or not.
That's what that guide and where is a plagiarism and how much you can allow is the policy which you can an institution has to develop for that. Because when I was studying in Belgium, my research proposal, when I gave it to them, they told me that you have 30 to 35% plagiarism. They showed me with that. First time I was seeing my paper like that. Yeah. Then they told this is the areas you have copied somewhere. Then for them, what they told was 10% is the minimum which I can allow, not more than that. And they show that 10% also, if you use it by a similarity index, no, that is fine. But that's what the standards are different actually. Even my own paper in last month when I submitted to the BMC, they told me again there is a similarities are there. Unless you go back and try to find out this problem, solve this problem, then only I can able to go for reviewing process. So this for what standards which we keep it for situations are different actually. So I understand that there will be a human element to do that, but for example, in the journal review process, the person who does is a technical editor who will not know what is the content properly.
Right.
And this Plagiarism occurs. It occurred to me also in one of the ways. I'm trying to make him understand this is not plagiarism. But he told, no, there is plagiarism. The technical editor report is like this. We can't do it. So at that time, situations difficult. We need to be very patient.
All these measurements, how do you interpret?
See, that is again a tool which gives that, as you say, the human element is more important to determine. Ultimately, the editor will tell that, okay, this amount is fine, or this amount of similarities are okay with that paper because it's fine. There is no, but that's right. That sensitiveness, it just does its job, the tool, but interpretation requires human element, and where that process of technical editor to editor and the journal, the author contribution in explaining.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Vikrant? I think Dr. Sanjay Singh, Dr. Anup sir.
Dr. Anup has a question, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Farid sir also has question.
Question,
yeah. Dr. Anup
So
sir, you are there?
Yeah, Dr. Anup, please proceed.
Good evening, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Good presentation. I just wanted to know that in regard to the PhD, the UGC recommends to publish 2 publications before the final defense.
Yes.
Of the So in this meantime of 3 years, if someone clones your study, how it can be tackled?
Yeah.
And then one more thing I would like to say that this has happened that in conferences when the postgraduate present with the short study, not the thesis part. So in the meantime, by the time the conference gets over, the persons who are there in the conference goes back and manipulates and publish it.
This is what happens.
So in this case, what?
See, you can write to an editor who has published it and say that this is my original idea. This has been stolen from here, and you can take the action against it. That's the only thing which can be done.
Okay. And regarding the PhD, what can be done?
PhD, what happens is, like in PhD, it happens. For example, there is a COVID vaccine which is developing in America, another one in India, and who gets a patency, whoever gets the first and reported, the most important. Now here, the question is if the person who has copied from India has copied from US and done it, has the copyright. So he can, if you have evidence for that it has been, cloning has been done, and you can write to the editor who has published that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, Dr. Sanjay Singh has a question. I would request Dr. Sanjay Singh, if you can.
Sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon.
Sir, can Institutional Ethical Committee play a major role in research integrity promotion? Because from publishing, it's a role of not only researcher. The major owners should be the institution also.
No, according to the guidelines, institutional ethics committees don't come into the picture of research integrity because they are only to review, ethical review. So if there is any research integrity, there should be another committee for that because that requires a different policy. IEC is mandated for only the reviewing the proposal. They are not to do with anything with authorship orders or something. They can deal with that because they are not mandated and they are not trained for that. So there should be some. That's why ICMA has come up with a policy like that. So what has to be done in that case?
Okay. So Dr. Farid is asked, how can you improve the functioning of an IEC in an institution?
Yes, IEC has to be. IEC is to do with the research review process. It should be an independent review best things are that ICMR has brought up 2018 guidelines, which are very apt, and if guidelines are followed, I feel that that the one way of improving the function, because IEC now says that 50% of IEC members for any proposal should be from outsiders. So you can get that first thing, that 50% of the people for IEC members are outsiders in the proposal, and that is one best way of improving the and functioning of IEC, and also registering the IEC, and there are now various methods and techniques are available, especially in e-software is available. A lot of things have been changed, and for further information, I can send you in the all the information how the recent things are about the improving and functioning of IEC are there.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. One more question from Dr. Ram Prasad. Do you foresee the concept of protected time for research being implemented in India in the coming years as against to multitasking?
Yes, I firmly believe and advocate that, because see, we should have academic professors and research professors. A person who is doing it, like you also have a rotating HODs. You also have academic professor is the one who deals with the teaching purpose. The research professor who does full-time research. This is what happening in other countries. So this I foresee those things happening in India also, because we have a lot of manpower, and we say that teaching, you can't do many things. So if you are a research professor, then you expect him to do 3-4 publications per year, then he will do it. If an academic professor is there and you expect him to do it, it will be difficult for him to do it, because he's doing academic job. So in that way, what happens is the credits given to an academic professor is also equivalent to research professor, because here what happens is he will be teaching undergraduate very nicely, a postgraduate, but he will not be getting credit unless he have publication. No, it's not like that. The research professor, he will be having a different tenure or different responsibilities, and the academic professor will be having a different. So in that way, that segregation is most important, and I foresee those things to happen in India future.
I think that's a good way forward for all of us. Yeah, I think Dr. Priya Krishna has a question. I would request Dr. Priya Krishna to please come online and please ask a question, because you haven't typed.
Yes, sir. It was a wonderful presentation, sir. Thank you so much for the valuable insights. Sir, my question is it acceptable for the budding researcher to do quality work with less number of publications than deteriorating his quality and going for more publications?
No answer is there in your question.
I know, sir. But the demand is, the present scenario is that. That's the reason I was asking this question.
No, I say like this. You have one publication which you feel happy that you have done it properly in your life, that is more than enough. Having 100 or 200, it doesn't make difference. If you say that my H index is so much, my G index is so much, it doesn't make sense. So one index when you do it properly, one paper when you have done it properly and have a good night's sleep, that is best, I would suggest.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at a different perspective to quality research. A good night's sleep. Sir, we have Dr. Ramya here also, who's wanting to ask a question. Dr. Ramya, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Vikrant and Dr. Chandrasekhar sir. Very nice presentation. Sir, I just want to state that we have an institutional plagiarism policy in place, and we have the Urkund software. Previously, we had the Turnitin, and now the Urkund. So as per the policy, the students are supposed to have only 10%, not about 10%, and they have a limited number of times when they can upload the particular document of the dissertation before it gets approved for the final binding. So I just want to know if the student, is there any other option or a plagiarism tool which can be suggested to the student, postgraduate student, before they submit to the Urkund or something, by they can self-check for plagiarism, and which is also not charged on chargeable basis. So do you have any suggestion?
Yeah, there are a lot of softwares which are free softwares are available. I missed that slide. Actually, I had that slide. I could have shown you the list of slide free software which are available, which can be downloaded by them and try to check the plagiarism. It's available. I think I can send you by email about that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Dr. Santosh has a question.
Dr. Santosh, please go ahead. I could not see his.
He has typed the question.
Okay, okay. I think
Yes.
It was.
Yes, Santosh is telling that RGHS is asking for submitting a master chart
Master chart
of the study data on online submissions. How valid is to provide data for the reviewer?
Does not carry risk for stealing of the data and misusing of data somewhere else.
Yes, it carries. It carries. Reviewer integrity is more important. We are all talking about the researcher's integrity, but researcher is again a reviewer again. Researcher's integrity. It has happened. An incident happened on RGHS. I know it personally that the MDS thesis was stolen and it was published also before the student came to know about that. It can risk the stealing of the data. I'll tell you, if you send a one reviewer a new study, and if he gets interested, so he may stall the review process of that particular article and steal the data, or he will do a new research till that he publishes. This can happen.
It has happened. It has happened with me. Sorry to intervene. It has happened with me quite frequently since last 6 months only.
Okay. Yeah, I know it. Many thesis has been done like that.
Yeah. Dr. Vamsi, I think we have completed all questions, most of them, and I would like to thank Dr. Chandrasekhar sir for a very enlightening, informative, as well as well covered, taking it through different stages and bringing every aspect of research integrity to all of us. And it was a great session, and thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Vamsi, and thank you, the association, for giving us this opportunity. Sir, your parting, Dr. Chandrasekhar, your parting remarks before we leave, and I'll give it off to Dr. Vamsi after that, sir.
No, I just repeat what I told to Priya Krishna. Have one good research paper or one good research. It's more than enough. Don't be in a race of this publishing a number of papers or more number of papers. I know that everybody, every institution, everywhere when you apply, they'll ask you. But I would suggest satisfaction is one paper. Okay, don't go behind impact factors again. And it's once you are addicted, it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Dr. Vamsi, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you one and all for your active participation. For the month of May, we have had 4 webinars, and this ends the kind of a season 1 of our webinar series that was planned. The frequency was weekly ones. Further in the future, for the month of June and July, how we have to be going in, whether the frequency, we are planning to do it a fortnight instead of every week. I thank once and all for active participation. I request you to send your suggestions or advices or feedbacks regarding the webinar series or the upcoming series, any topics to be done, or how to improvise the current sessions that have been done. Thank you very much, one and all, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.